Hello, welcome to ASTM D37 on Cannabis, new member orientation. My name is Ed Nodland. I'm a volunteer member and been involved since 2018 with ASTM. Started out on D37 and have also been active in 2 or 3 other committees. I'm currently the 2022 and 2023 membership secretary. These slides are available here at this bit.ly address, and you can pause the video and go get those slides. And the slides will be updated with the location of this video once I post it and know what the link is going to be. What I'm going to do in this orientation is cover several topics. First, a little bit about ASTM and being a member. Then we'll look at some of the specifics on D37, the committees and subcommittees, officers. We'll take a look at membership classifications and responsibilities. Then after that, I'll get into a little bit on the standards, the types of standards, how they're used, the process of developing standards, balloting, voting. And finally, I'll wrap it up with some additional resources and talk about something called Committee Week, where we meet in person to develop standards and work out details. So for starters here, about ASTM. ASTM was formed in 1898. There's a lot of links throughout the slides. I'll just click on this one here. Talks a little bit about ASTM. There's a short video, and down here is a great brochure that gets into more details. There's a lot of information available on the ASTM websites. There's a short wiki overview. You can go search that stuff. ASTM's mission: helping our world work better. Jump out to that brochure and you can get into more detail. There's over 12,000 global ASTM standards today. It's an organization of volunteers with over 30,000 members, with participants from over 140 countries, and they've been in operation for over 120 years. There are currently 149 ASTM technical committees. Committees are identified by an ID and a title, such as D37, Cannabis, E60, Sustainability, D08 on roofing and waterproofing. There's a full list available at this link here. I'll just click this and show you a little bit more of the list. And a lot of people ask, what's the A and the B and the C? Any committee that starts with A is iron based material, metals, non-metallic metals. I shouldn't say non-metallic. Cement. D is miscellaneous. But you can see there's a lot of committees here. And if you want to find out anything about any of the committees, you can click on any one of these. I'm just going to go to E4 if I can find it. I think that's the one I want. It's not. F4. And here you can see a list about that committee, its scope, and I can get in there and look at a list of all the subcommittees. And we'll talk a little bit more about subcommittees. Back to our slides. Members often refer to committees by the ID. So it's not uncommon if you're talking to people, they say, well, maybe we should check with E36 and get their opinion on this. It takes a long time to memorize all those, and I don't have them memorized. So don't be shy to ask and say, okay, what's E36? D37 was formed in 2017. Currently, we have 13 subcommittees, 1,147 members as of April 18th. We got members from 36 nations, and that's just in D37 on cannabis. Since 2017, we've developed 34 cannabis standards. There's 60 more work items proposed or in works right now. And you can get there using my committee's standard tracking. And we'll take a look at that in a little bit. The executive officers. This is the first new slate of executive officers since the committee was formed in 2017. Kathleen May is the chair. David Valancourt, our vice chair. Recording secretary. Terry Grass, check. Membership Secretary, Ed Nodland, myself. And then we are supported by ASTM staff. The first 4 positions are all volunteers. They have other jobs, they work in the industry or consultants or education, but now there's the ASTM staff. Our staff manager is Jimmy Farrell. Our ASTM administrative assistant is Elizabeth Lees, and our editor is Emily Moore. You can use my committee rosters to find out who the subcommittee officers are, and let's take a look at a few of these things. So I'm going to go out here to membership, and when you become a member, you get your account and you can log on. I call them dashboards, and you get in here and this is how it looks. And I'm going to go to my committees, and here I can see the committees that I'm on. And here is the tracking standards, so I can see what standards D37 has. I'll click on this. And I can look at all the standards or standards that are just developed by one of the subcommittees. So if we look at the subcommittees, we see we have indoor and outdoor horticulture and agriculture, basically growing. We have quality management systems, laboratory testing, processing and handling, basically manufacturing, excuse me, security and transportation, personnel training, assessments, credentialing, industrial hemp, cannabis devices and appliances. And there are a few new ones that have yet to develop any standards, so they're not showing up on this list. If I click on D37, I see all the standards that are out there. And I scroll down here farther and I see all the work items, items that are in progress and being worked on. So let's go back a couple of steps. The rosters, if I click on rosters, and now I click on view all D37 rosters, I can see all the different committees, financial services, sustainability, cannabis devices, some of the new ones. Okay. Member benefits. One, you get a free subscription to the bi-monthly magazine, Standardization News. When I first started getting this and looking at it, it was like, oh, a lot of stuff that doesn't pertain to me. But now I get it and I read through it. There's so much interesting information and things that are happening in different industries and new industries that are coming on all the time. It's really a great publication. You get a free subscription to 1 volume of standards. D37 standards are in volume 1510. If that's the only committee that if D37 is the only committee you've joined, you'll probably want to go ahead and select volume 1510 as your free volume. You get to keep up with trends. You're networking with industry stakeholders and experts. Collaboration on latest methods and techniques. By getting involved in the standards, you're hearing about what others in the industries are thinking and where things are going, what challenges there are. Along with being a member, there's also responsibilities and good practices. 1, participate with standard development and the meetings. This is encouraged, it's not required. You can join just to keep up with what's going on, but we really want to encourage getting a diverse set of knowledge from people and different types of stakeholders and from different areas to help develop standards, international standards that really meet the needs of this industry. Balloting is required to maintain your official voting status, and we're going to get more into that later on. Understanding that competitors are coming together to collaborate. Becoming familiar with the regulations that govern ASTM committees, referred to as the Green Book. The Form and Style Guide that talks about writing the standards and what that format is and the styles that are used. That's considered the Blue Book. And learning about the My Committee's dashboard features. And we'll look at that a little more as we go. And these links, everything here is linked and you can get into these documents. Learning how to use Compass to access standards. Compass is another, it's an ASTM platform, and that's where you can get in and get to different standards and purchase those standards. But you will have access to the D37 if you get volume 1510. Those you'll have access to in the Compass system. Okay, I talked about competitors coming together to collaborate. ASTM follows the International Not-for-Profit Organization, or I should say the International Standards for Antitrust. And I've highlighted the main statement here. Antitrust laws require that all competition be open and unrestricted. It is ASTM's policy and the policy of each of its committees and subcommittees to conduct all business and activity in full compliance with international, federal, and state antitrust and competition laws. I'm not going to read this whole statement because at every meeting, we open with a review of this statement. Okay, I talked a little bit about the subcommittees already. Committees are divided into subcommittees to address specific areas of expertise. We have 13 of them. Members can participate on multiple committees and subcommittees. Once you become a member, you can sign up for as many committees as you want and subcommittees on those. The list of subcommittees can be found on the list committees page and the My Committees dashboard, and we already took a look at that. What I will do, though, is jump out here, and if I want to sign up for committees, I can go to Manage My Committees. And here it says I'm currently a member of these committees. I can join another main committee by clicking this button, and once I've joined, I can then join or drop subcommittees. I can also drop myself from a main committee. So you use that Manage Committees to add and drop. Okay, now we're going to go to types of standards. There's different types of standards, basically 6 of them here. Practice gives you a definitive set of steps to accomplish something. A guide, which is steps and guidance. It has options. Lots of times there'll be a practice, which is very definitive, and there'll be a guide to sort of explain through that. There's test methods, a very particular type of standard that talks specifically how to prep, set up, run a test, report those results. Specifications of a product, classifications. I haven't worked with any classifications really in ASTM, but I have in my experience with hazmat, where you'll take different hazardous materials and classify them, class 1, class 2, class 3 type materials, and terminology documents. All of these are considered standards. It's not unusual to hear somebody say, well, that standard, well, that's a test, that looks like a test method, not a standard. Well, they're all standards. But maybe they came in and they've just been working with practices for a year or two since they've joined as a member, and now they're seeing a different type. And so there's a little confusion lots of times in the speak and the way we talk by members. So just keep in mind, these are all standards, but quite often you'll hear us talk specifically, this practice or this test method. But remember, they're all standards. To get a complete list and more details on all of these, you can see the ASTM Regulations Section 2.2, and it has a description of these. How is the standard used? The first way is voluntary application. A company decides we are going to follow this standard in the way that we operate, the way we make this product, the way we classify something, just because it's good practice. And we'll have that standard, and our customers are going to like, the fact that they're getting standard product. A customer requirement. A customer may require that they want something done per a standard. And in order to win a contract with them, you're going to have to be able to show that your work does follow that standard, that your product meets certain standards. Third way is certification to a standard issued by a certification body. It could be that that customer says you need to be certified that your products meet a certain set of standards. And in that case, you'll need to go out, find a certification body that's performing these assessments and get your certification. And last, adoption by reference in state or national regulations. Okay, so here's a couple of examples. This is a tube of tar type caulking. I had a leak in the gutter, and I asked the guy at the big box store, you know, what's good for putting in plastic gutters? And he held up 2 different tubes, different manufacturers. And so I was looking at them. This one has 100% wet surface adhesion per ASTM D3409 and no blistering, sagging, or sliding per ASTM D4586. So I thought, what the heck, can't go wrong with this one. And that's the one I purchased. And then my son sent me this one of a book, some sort of book that kids can chew on and not destroy. And down here in the fine print, it's a little blurry, but it has a reference to ASTM F963. You get involved with ASTM and pretty soon you start seeing it pop up all over the place on products. So let's take a look at the standard development and maintenance process. Let's say you want to update a standard, or you want to write a new standard. You know, first thing you can do is coordinate with the subcommittee or the subcommittee chair, express your interest, and then you'll check out a work item. You can form a task group to help write your standard or update a standard, and this can be a task group of just yourself. The first one I did, I pretty much just put it together myself using some standards from other committees that were very similar. And once I had it ready to go, then I put it to ballot. Now, if you're forming a group, you can start a collaboration area. ASTM dashboard has areas for the collaboration area, and you can collaborate using other tools, emails, getting together with people, you know, just having meetings with them, using Google Docs, whatever you want. But ASTM does have a collaboration area that you can use as well. So once you're ready, then you submit that work item for ballot, and you'll be submitting that in a Word format. It'll go to subcommittee ballot. So if you're in the Agriculture and Horticulture Committee writing something about growing, then it's going to go out to ballot to the members that are on that subcommittee first. When that is approved, then it's going to go out to the main committee, all 1,100 members, and they all get to see this. So if you've had a lot of changes when it went through subcommittee, you're going to reballot that. If you have just a few minor changes or there were no changes, then it can go to main committee and can be a concurrent ballot where the subcommittee is seeing the minor changes, you know, on a second ballot or a third ballot, but it's also going to main at the same time. You'll learn more about that as you get involved. Once it's passed subcommittee in main, then it goes to a committee on standards review, and then it goes to an editor, clean up any editorial, the format, typos. They don't change any of the technical content, and then it goes to publishing and is published on the as a published standard. Updates can occur at any time, and all standards get reviewed once every 5 years. So it comes up at 5 years that it needs to be reviewed and reinstated. And then you have 3 years, that subcommittee has 3 years to get that done. So let's take a look at balloting. Balloting options. And these are all covered in ASTM Regulations Section 11. You can ballot an item affirmative, and optionally you can put in some comments. And that basically means I support this going out as is, but if you're in there making other changes and you're going to reballot it, here's some additional comments and things that can make this better. Or it can just be a comment that says, great work. Negatives. This is a comment, and comments are required on a negative. A negative basically means I want something considered before this item proceeds. If it's a subcommittee ballot or even a main ballot, it's going to stop that from being published until that negative is addressed and your input is considered. You can also abstain. This is common. If you know nothing about growing and you're on the training and certification subcommittee, you might just abstain because you really don't feel you have expertise in that area. You can also abstain because you're just too darn busy right now to spend the time on especially a very lengthy standard. But it does count as the fact that you have balloted, and we're going to discuss that in a little bit. Addressing negatives. So first of all, you as the focal on a work item, author of a standard, you get back a negative and it's persuasive. You say, that's really good and that change needs to be made. You go ahead and you make the changes and you send that to reballot. And sometimes if it's a small change, cleaning a few things up, some wording changes, you can get out to a concurrent ballot right away. The second one is negotiating. So this would be there's a couple of ways here. You're negotiating with the person that submitted that negative to withdraw the negative on a promise that you're going to make changes in the future. We've done that a lot of times when a standard is pretty good, you got a lot of positive feedback, and there's a few small changes that's going to add a few months to getting this out the door. And it's not major. And quite often, the person that's put in that negative says, yes, if we go ahead and roll these changes in the immediate future, I will withdraw this negative at this point. The other one is you're not persuaded by what that negative that you've got. And you talk to the person and they say, no, this is really important. But you don't want to put that in there. You disagree with it. And so what you can do is you can submit a non-persuasive ballot. What this is you're putting in, this is what the negative is. Here is the reason why this should not go into this standard. That goes out to ballot. And now everybody can ballot. Do you agree with that not persuasive statement? In other words, you agree with the author that it should not be put in there? Or are you disagreeing and saying, no, I'm agreeing with the person that put that negative in, and it really should go into that standard? The results of that ballot then say which way it's going to go. So it's a very good system for resolving negatives. And lots of times we'll bring these non-persuasive ballots up at committee week, which I'll talk about in a little bit, where we talk about them in person and do a ballot right there in person, provided that we have a quorum. So official votes, let's take a look at that. Voting status does not apply to submitting comments or negatives. Everybody gets to submit comments, submit negatives, and ballot. Voting status has to do with decision-making. So I'll back up here a little bit. So when it comes down to needing to get 90% approval, that has to do with the members that have official voting status. You need to ballot in order to maintain your voting status. If you don't ballot for 3 consecutive items that come up, you can lose your voting status. The other places where you don't have voting status is that only one member per affiliation, a company, an association, or a government organization, holds official voting status. Other members from that same affiliation, say company, have a redundant interest status. So when it comes to making a vote, each company, association, government, organization gets one official vote. That way you don't have a company getting people on and all voting negative to shut down something that is a technique or a method or something that another company is trying to get through. So this levels the playing field when it comes to competition. You can see ASTM Regulations Section 6 for more information on voting status, classifications, and all of that. You can view your status using the View Subcommittees to see your classification and voting status. I'm trying to remember now how to do that myself real quick. Subcommittees, committee profile. Okay, now I can go to no, that's the officers. Okay, I'm forgetting how to get to it myself. Hold on just a second. What did I say? Committee profile, view, and subcommittees. Okay, committee profile. There it is, view, subcommittees, subcommittee memberships. And I can see what my classification is and my voting status on the different committees. Okay, member classifications. There's a balance between the stakeholder classifications. And this is maintained so that the vote, I should just read. A balance between the stakeholder classifications is maintained for voting, but it does not affect negative balloting. Producers have no more than 50%. No more than 50% of the producers have voting rights out of the other classifications. I'll come back to that in a second. Users, this is B2B users. Not users of, in this case, cannabis, or if it's roofing. It's not that you're a user of a roofing, you're a person with a roof on your house. This is B2B users. So for example, in hemp, if you're making biofuels, you're a user of hemp, but you're not producing hemp. Or if you're making linens and clothing out of hemp fiber, you would be a user. Consumers, these are typically consumer advocate groups, especially in the medical cannabis usage space, but it can also just be a user that's there to represent the user interest. So that's a consumer. And then if you don't fit into any of these three, then you're general interest. And so producers, not more than 50% of the producers can have voting rights, of the members. So if we have 100 members that are users, consumers, and general interest, altogether there's 100 of them, but we have 150 producers, only 100 producers will have voting rights. As more producers come on, they will be put on a wait list. I didn't do the best job of describing that. I hope you understand. If not, get a hold of me and I'll fill you in further. Okay. You may be assigned different classifications on different subcommittees. And being that D37 is new and all of us volunteers are learning, over the years, there's been a little bit of confusion. As membership secretary, I'm working to resolve that. If you noticed when I showed mine, I had lots of different classifications on different committees, and we're cleaning that up a little bit. Okay, and finally, getting on to resources here. You got the dashboard. Let's take a little bit closer look at that. So I'm going to go back now to membership. You can get into your collaboration areas. You can get into Compass, standards tracking. I'm mainly going to look, if I click on my committees In here, this is where I'll see my ballots. I have 2 outstanding. One of them I have deliberately not taken care of. It closes today, so I just have today to ballot on this. I click on that. It comes up. It shows me what this ballot is. It's on a guide for whole hemp seed storage at primary production facilities. And it shows me who the focal is on this, technical contact. And then I can vote affirm with comment, negative, abstain, or abstain with comment. Sometimes you might have 5 or 6 individual items in a ballot. And so that's what a ballot looks like. I can go out and look at comments I've received on previous ballots. I have one here that closed May of this year. I got another one here closed in March, and I can click on that and I can see the results, what percentage returns, and I can go in and look at the comments on all the people that commented on this. And so there's 4 negatives in here that I'm currently in the process of dealing with. Back. Oh, close that out, back into here. Next meetings. Okay. I have a meeting coming up June 12th to the 14th, committee week. That's going to be in Seattle. I got that same committee week, 13th and 14th. I have E36 and I haven't resolved it yet, but I actually have to be in 2 places at the same time, 1 o'clock on Monday. Got to figure out how I'm going to do that. And E60 is happening right now today. Okay, let's see what else is in here. Work items, collaboration areas, meetings, agendas, additional resources. We're going to take a look at that on another slide here. Member training. And go through an additional information. So we'll get to that in a minute. Meeting minutes, committee documents. In here, there's the bylaws and the scope statements from all the different committees and some different things that you'll find in here. So you can cruise around, look at this, go through and get familiar with it. There's a lot of information here. Okay, key documents and forms. You can go to this link. I have it on the next slide as well. I'll cover it briefly. There's a lot of online ASTM training. And, you can go in and click on these. Some of the training, you can sign up for the next online ones. There's training provided during committee weeks. And there's also videos that you can watch on a lot of topics. Recently came across a good presentation on global cooperation. That's one that's worth looking at. And it really shows you how ASTM is international and all the organizations where they have memorandums of understanding with different countries that are using the ASTM standards. Then we have the ASTM staff. There's a link here for Jimmy's email. You can also get that off of the subcommittee roster pages where you get everybody's email. You can get a hold of Elizabeth. They're both very helpful and love to hear from you. Don't feel like you're bothering them. They'll let you know if they get too busy. And then you can also get a hold of the subcommittee chairs and vice chairs. I should take a quick look at that. Let me go to my committees, rosters. I'll go out here on DO4, 3704 and processing. And here I can see that the subcommittee chair, Peter McGuire, I can click that, get his email address and send him an email with a question. ASTM recently did a major rework of their extensive collection of ASTM web pages. And it's changed a lot of the addresses for a lot of the information. it takes a while for the search engines to catch up on that. So the search engines have indexed a lot of locations for this stuff that ends up in a oops, our bad message that comes up. And so if you get one of these and you can't find what you're looking for, contact ASTM staff. They'll get you the information, and it also gives them feedback to make sure that that information is getting properly indexed and updated. Key documents and forms. There's the form and style guide, we already mentioned that, the regulations, draft standards and templates. If you're starting a standard, you can get a template. They're very helpful. The ASTM Technical Committee Officers Handbook, the Red Book. This is very helpful to go through because you'll understand how everything works and what the officers are doing and what's happening, from your perspective as just a basic member, what's happening behind the scenes to make this all work. Strategic planning manual, proxy forms for voting. I'm not going to go into your voting, but if you can't make it, you can send proxies. You need to fill out the form. Certificate of attendance, symposium proposal forms, and directions for preparing and submitting work items for ballots. Committee week. Committees generally meet twice a year during 2 of 8 different committee week meetings. And D37 typically meets for 2 to 4 days during January and June committee weeks. During this, there's a lot of other committees that show up. So I think in ours, we typically have about 16 different committees, I think, that show up there. Rock and Soil, E36 on certification. And so, as you're just walking around the halls in the elevators, you'll see people with ASTM badges on. They hand them out there when you check in. And you start talking to them. They can be from any one of these different committees, and I always find it quite interesting to learn about what they're up to. Why are they there? What are they working on? What's their industry? So you get a lot of good stuff. And if you have time, you can sit in on some of their meetings and just see how other committees work, because every committee is run by its members, and that brings a little variation into it. Use my committees, meetings, and symposium. We saw that already to see the upcoming committee week meetings. The sessions are typically start off with a main opening. All the members get together and sort of a summary of what's happened in the last 6 months since we last met, and what the objectives are for that and what we're trying to get done. And lots of times the subcommittee chairs will say, what's their focus right now, what's going to be going on in their meetings and everything. So it gives you a feel for what's going to happen. Then we break into task group meetings that afternoon and into the next morning, where we're having meetings working on the development of standards, working through negatives, and doing that type of work. Then we get into the subcommittee meetings as the task groups are getting wrapped up. Subcommittee follows official protocol, Robert's Rules of Orders, and the task group focals are then summarizing, what happened in their task group meetings. If there's some decisions to be made, they're presented, and we will follow official protocol in the balloting and voting in making decisions on those subcommittees. Following the subcommittee is main committee. And in this one, it's very similar to sub, although now it's everybody. All the members from all the different subcommittees coming together. Again, official protocol. The sub chairs summarize what went on in the subcommittee meetings. And if there are decisions that were made, they get presented at main committee. And now the main committee, everybody that's present, also has to approve a decision before it moves forward. And so that's another way of balloting that occurs. All standards go out to ballot, but maybe some negatives or other decisions get made during committee week in the main meeting. And quite often there's a committee luncheon if it happens to fall on the earliest part of the week when we're there, because we meet usually at the beginning for 2 or 3 days. There's a committee luncheon, and typically the president of the board will speak. during those luncheons. So June 2020 through January of 2022, D37 Committee Week has been virtual due to COVID. And due to this, it accelerated the adoption of virtual meetings worldwide by, I'm saying my own opinion, 1 to 2 decades. Virtual technology reduces the cost of travel. It has some other benefits in it. It also has some negatives over the in-person meetings. So we really don't know how hybrid in-person virtual meetings will evolve. But conference room providers, these hotels and conference centers, realize that it is now something that is being used. And so they are starting to provide this type of technology. But we're charting new waters, and we really don't know how this is all going to work out. We do have some plans for hybrid technology being used, virtual meeting being used during the upcoming committee week. And we hope to find and merge the best of both of these in-person and virtual experience. If you are attending virtually using whatever, WebEx is primarily the tool that's used by ASTM, or if Zoom is being used or one of the others. Mute when you are not talking to avoid background noise. Use the hand raise features so that we can call on people in the order of them raising their hand, just as we would if you were in person, and then lower your virtual hand when you're done. Watch the chat and participate in the chat. That's one of the benefits really that I really like, is all the chat that goes on, people that are sharing links. Somebody will bring up something and say, yeah, there's some really good information. I don't remember where it was. And somebody else will find it, put that link in the chat. There'll be little side discussions going on, and they're not disruptive as they would be if you're having side conversations in an in-person meeting. So I really like the chat, and I'll continue to use it even when I'm in person. Remember, everybody's there to express their own ideas and opinions. Use time efficiently, listen, be patient, respect the other ideas and opinions. Don't feel like just because somebody has expressed something that it's going to get cast in concrete. There's a whole growling process that you got to get through to get something going in your way, that might be controversial. So be patient. Arrive on time and expect meetings to start on time. So if this was in person, this is where I would open it up for question and answers. Since it's not, we're basically done. Thank you for watching, and bye now.